NPC Streams. My name is Anthony John Agnello, streams producer here at Engadget.com. And welcome, my friends. Welcome to the end of E3 2015 week. I realize that technically speaking, E3 is already done. E3 is complete. The show floor closed last night. Everybody has packed up their demos. But that is not how we freaking roll here. That's not what we do. We are doing this until the very end of time. Today, we are going to be speaking with the wonderful, wonderful human beings at Hello Games. Durman667, are you guys not able to hear me that well? Is that a fact? Do you need more volume? We're getting a good level on this end. In the meantime, here is Hello Games calling right now. Hello, hey. Alex. Are you back?
Hello.
Welcome back aboard, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Alex from Hello Games, and is Sean on the line, Alex?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Perfect. Hello, Sean.
Hello.
Welcome. I am so glad that you guys are here. It would seem that people aren't quite hearing me either. We're getting some really nasty volume, unfortunately, which I'm not sure why. We're getting a very, very good read on our microphone. But anyway, we're here to talk about Hello Games. Are you guys completely exhausted? I could not believe, Alex, when you agreed to come on and actually talk to me today on Friday. That is insane to me that you guys would want to talk to somebody at the end of... Pardon?
We just love E3. We
don't
want to go. You know, is there anyone who will do interviews with us on a Saturday?
Sunday.
Let's make it the 2 weeks of E3 rather than the week of E3.
Well, what do you mean? Everybody wants to talk to you guys. Everybody has wanted to talk to you guys for 18 months now. No Man's Sky. Like, it is amazing to me how the hype for No Man's Sky has just, since the moment you guys showed off that first trailer, it has just not abated for even a second. People are obsessed with this game. Why do you think people have responded so strongly to No Man's Sky?
I don't know for sure, but I think, you know, it's a very ambitious game, I suppose, and people like that, you know. And also, I actually think when we announced it, I thought it would be quite niche, you know. I thought like that a small niche of people would be really excited by it, because I thought the kind of sci-fi that I liked, which is that kind of sci-fi of the 60s and 70s, I thought, you know, that's kind of a niche thing, like, you know, sci-fi with post-apocalyptic worlds and, you know, space marines, that's what's popular.
Not Ray Bradbury. You don't think that...
Exactly.
Yeah, not Ray Bradbury, Asimov, Heinlein, that era has passed. But apparently not. Apparently that's what people are dying for.
I think I've learned that, like, actually if you draw like a Venn diagram of like gamers and then people who are into like sci-fi and into even things like Star Wars and Star Trek and that kind of actually more utopian 70s sci-fi, then that diagram's pretty, you know, it's got some good overlap, you know. And that wasn't obvious to me, maybe because I'm an idiot. But now I can see, you know, and everyone that I meet, I haven't met a single person at E3 who hasn't been like, you know, oh my God, those were some of my favorite books, and we can kind of just sit and chat about sci-fi or whatever. So I think that maybe that resonates.
Sean, you know, it's very funny. In anticipation of doing this little chat with you guys, you know, I was sitting there thinking back. It just didn't seem that long ago that I got that very first email from you announcing Hello Games as a studio in 2010. I so distinctly remember the day that I got an email from you I was writing for the Onion AV Club here in the States, and you know, I get this email, and it just seems so much more passionate than your stock PR email of we're announcing a new studio. It is we are a small team, and we love games, and we love old games like Sonic the Hedgehog, and we're very excited to talk to you about our very first thing, Joe Danger. And
Right.
I fell in love with Joe Danger. Joe Danger was one of my favorite things that I played on PS3, you know, and long before it went to other platforms. But it was very modest in its ambitions. You know, it was a much smaller game, even than Joe Danger 2. How did you go from Joe Danger to No Man's Sky? The difference between these games and their goals and, you know, your vision for what a game could be at Hello Games just changed dramatically. What happened? How did this come about?
Um, it was really nice. Like, it's nice of you to say that that was a nice email. I remember sending that kind of stuff when we were announcing Hello Games and announcing Joe Danger, just being so nervous, and also not having a clue what I was doing. But, you know, people like yourself were just really nice to us, you know, kind of took us under your wing, you know, and helped get the game previewed and reviewed and stuff. And we did that a lot. We didn't really know what we were doing with Joe Danger, or we didn't know what we were doing starting up like a studio.
Mm.
But you'll know, like, you received probably lots of emails from me from then on because you responded, you know. So you probably wish you hadn't. So like you know, we would have done every PAX, every GDC, every Gamescom, you know, every kind of conference that we could possibly go to, and really like fought to get the game in front of people. And like people who don't work in games probably don't realize how hard it is. Like, you look at E3 and just how many games there are, and how hard it is to stand out, not just like to press, which is really hard.
It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult, and it's more crowded than ever. You know, Hello Games opened at a moment when it suddenly became feasible for a team of 3-4 people to open a studio and actually get their game out in front of millions of people. You no longer had to rely on publishers. It's, in many ways, a much more democratized space to actually release games in, but at the same time, it's 9 billion times more difficult to get people to look at what you're making.
But I think we kind of went through that, and we were like, you know, let's do something different. You know, let's not actually. I would rather have stopped making games than just continue to make games of the size of Joe Danger, and kind of introducing a new game and trying to that uphill battle from the start of like, let's get people interested and let's go to all the shows and let's steal people's time, you know. I kind of had this feeling like, let's do something that, you know, justifies its existence, you know, that people are excited by. And I would rather kind of you know, risk like it all going terribly wrong than just do something safe, kind of thing. Because, you know, that would be the obvious thing for us to do, is something of a similar scope and scale to Joe Danger, maybe a little bit familiar, you know, you see studios doing that all the time, which is like, let's pick a game idea that's a bit like what we've done before, you know, there's just a slight tweak on it. And it just really didn't appeal. I just thought I would rather almost quit games, you know, than do something like that. So we kind of had that discussion in the studio, and we were like, okay, then what is the game that gets you out of bed in the morning? You know, what is the game that makes you want to just make games again, and to take real risks and to work really hard and stuff? And that for us was this game idea, this No Man's Sky.
Well, it's really funny that you should describe it that way, of saying, like, what's the game that's going to get me out of bed in the morning? Because I actually have sitting here, I have the email that you sent out in December of 2013, before No Man's Sky even had a name. And you start by saying, so I'm sitting here pretty much broken in a hotel in San Francisco. The past few weeks have been completely insane. We've been working towards something really big, genuinely the biggest thing we've ever done, and I'm basically terrified. It's a science fiction game, but it's not like most other sci-fi games. We set out to make a game that challenges what it means to be next gen and what it means to be an indie title. Now, No Man's Sky is not out there yet. It's not ready for release. It's coming. Do you feel how has this game changed since you sent that email? How has this game taken shape in ways that you weren't prepared for? And do you still feel like you're going insane? Do you still feel that way as you're making this thing?
Well, you're asking me on the wrong week because E3 is like that. And yeah, I think you might be insane if you don't think you're insane at E3. So yeah, it's been like a tough road, but it's totally self-inflicted, and it's weird hearing you read that email because I could remember writing that, and it's kind of brutally honest to how things were at the time. Like we worked so hard, but also so intensely. Like we had this game as we've been developing it. It's one that in the studio, we have real arguments and we have real passion about, and we will. It is kind of all the extremes of emotions are felt day to day working on the game. Especially in the run up to E3 or that original BGXs. But we wanted to do something that for us made us feel that way. Made us feel that passionate about what we were doing. And I think we've definitely done that. I think, for us internally, it's something that means a lot to us. This game means a lot to us. And has it changed? You're kind of asking, has it changed over the last year and a half? Like, the game has changed, but not in ways that we weren't planning anyway. In fact, we used to spend all our time on Joe Danger, like I was saying. Every milestone that we did, every kind of build that we did was aimed towards some show that we wanted to go to or something like that. And actually we did way more shows, way more gaming conferences and stuff with Joe Danger, and way more appearances with Joe Danger than we've ever done with No Man's Sky. Like, we've actually this will be the fourth time we've shown off the game. Whereas like with Joe Danger, before it came out, we probably did, 12, 14 game shows and conferences and stuff before it came out. So actually we've been reasonably quiet. And the reason for that is we just kind of go to a show like this, and then afterwards we just feel like going dark, and not really talking to anyone. Because, one, the level of interest in the game is kind of scary. And two, we just feel like we want to kind of get on and make it and not live like in the public eye, and not live with, loads of interaction with the world that might distract us or might change our ideas of how the game we're trying to make.
Shaw, we do have a couple of questions here from the chat. And Sky would like to know if you're going to translate No Man's Sky into French.
Yes, we are.
Hey, that's simple. Is there or obviously a release date has not been announced. I know that every single person under the sun has asked you this week if there is a release date. We're not going to talk about that, but will we see No Man's Sky come out in pretty much every region when it does have a release date? Are we going to see it in Europe and Asia and North America right at the same time?
Yeah, that's the idea. It'll go to Asia, America, Europe, kind of Australia. Those kind of major regions. It'll release in all of them, and it'll be translated into, I don't know what all the languages are, but about 9 different languages or something.
Rangman would like to know: will No Man's Sky still feature space stations, as has been teased in the past?
Yeah, definitely space stations. Every solar system has its own space station. They're like procedurally generated, so you've actually seen little glimpses of them in trailers. They're these huge structures that you can fly into and dock, and when you're in there, you can kind of, bring up UI to do trading and stuff like that, and to drop off goods. But you can also buy ships when you're in a space station.
Oh, so speaking of ships, Iron Spore asks, is it possible to crash? You had been talking about all of the great 1960s and 70s science fiction. That sort of age of exploration in sci-fi. Crash landing on an alien planet seems to be an essential part of that, at least to me. Or can you get marooned in No Man's Sky? Do you have to, rely on the kindness of some stranger flying around to come and save you?
You can, you can get kind of stranded. A really common thing that happens to people when I first give them the controller, almost every single person, is that they lose where their ship is, so they park it, and then they get out, and then they walk for a little bit, and then they can't remember where their ship was.
That's Explorer 101. Remember
Right.
where you parked.
Yeah. And it always makes me laugh. Like, you have a little button that you can press, and it's like almost like your keys for your kind of parked car. You can kind of press the button and then see the lights flash, type of thing. So it just flashes up a little icon. But it's really interesting to watch with our game. People will get out of the ship, they'll walk for a bit, and they'll be exploring the world, and then they'll suddenly turn to me and go, "Oh, where's my ship?" And I won't know either, kind of thing, because I
Yeah,
haven't
I like that
watched.
they ask you as though
Yeah,
you'll know.
yeah, yeah. But here's what's funny is it's just the way that people play the game. Like, actually, if you play something like Far Cry, right, which is really open world and kind of full of foliage and grass and trees and things like that. If you play Far Cry, um, then you like normally actually have loads of pathways that the designers have laid down, to kind of lead your eye. And somebody's actually thought about landmarks and making sure there are really obvious landmarks. And then they mark loads of things on the HUD, and they have, a map and stuff like that. But if you take our game, it's really different. Nobody's done that, so nobody's put pathways down. Nobody's been able to sit there and think, how will this lead the eye or whatever. And people are so used to, when playing games, being in effectively corridors.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if it's an open world game, they know that they can safely just have their eyes led, that they don't have to think about where they're going. Really, somebody's already thought of that for them.
Living in an open world game is like being a cat, Sean. There's always a laser pointer that is going to like flash on the ground and lure you back to where you're supposed to
Yeah,
go. And
yeah,
that's so appealing about No Man's Sky, the fact that there is no red dot that is constantly
right.
dragging you to some objective. But do you have any concern that it's so open, that it's so free, that people will flounder when they pick it up? Like, do you worry that nobody will learn from that first experience of, oh no,
So,
I lost my ship?
so we've been seeing this like here, and also back at the office when we let people play. That first hour, people just keep having it happen. They say like, "Oh, where was I? And how did I?" Oh, a number one thing that people say is like, "Oh my God, I've walked so much further than I thought I had, right? And now I'm really turned around and I'm a little bit lost." And then after about an hour, you see people start to actually, and this sounds strange, orienteer.
Mm.
They actually get out of their ship. They remember where they put it, right? They go like, "Oh, I parked over there by those trees," right? And then they start thinking, "I will walk to that mountain." And they start walking to that mountain. And as they're going, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to follow the lake around to the left," and they start talking about it and thinking about it like it's a much more real place. And I've had loads of people say that to me, like, oh, this feels, much more like a real place than kind of anything I've experienced in a game before. And that's just because they're thinking about it in those terms. They're thinking about the distances that they're passing or where they're going, and kind of plotting out little landmarks like you do in the real world, like you do if you just go into some woods. You don't just start walking, and not thinking about where you're going. And actually, like I watch people playing for the very first time and just noticing how many people just walk around in a circle and don't even realize that that's what they're doing.
Right. Right.
So it's fun. It's like there's a part of your brain that you actually normally switch off when you're playing games, that you need to not switch off when you're playing No Man's Sky, And you're right, like maybe people's first instant with it will be that they flounder a little bit, or that they feel a bit weird, or, a bit kind of disorientated. But I sort of like that. I think that's a positive thing. When we said we were like, we're going to make No Man's Sky, and it's going to be something that is going to kind of be quite challenging, as a game to develop it, and it's going to be something we're really excited about. Never as that part of that conversation was like, and it's going to sell millions of copies, and it has to be really successful and stuff like that. So we just kind of think, hey, let's just make a game that's interesting, and like kind of experiment with some stuff, and we still feel like that, and we try to ignore all the pressure of now lots of people seem interested in it.
Soma UK asks, will there be sentient life on planets, or even something like primitive communities of cavemen? And we see lots of animals, and you guys have demonstrated the breadth of new species that you can meet and all of that stuff. But will there be anything that you run into that's using tools? Like, do you have to worry about the Prime Directive? Do you need to, like, worry about going full Captain Kirk and sleeping with somebody if you meet them on this planet?
So, like, there's lots of things that we have in the game that we don't talk about, that we hold back, just because we want that moment when people get to discover it themselves. And it's something I'm always really careful of, saying, because we get these questions all the time, like, well, how many space stations are there, and how big can they be, and what's the biggest building that you can have, and all those kind of things. And the answer to every one of those things is ruining like a moment for somebody. But I will say that, like, we're not about creating sentient life, actually. I mean, that's something that video games just don't do. Like, actually, NPCs in almost every game are like the most illusion breaking thing that is in games.
That's true. No human being stands in one part of town walking back and forth having the same half a conversation all day.
Or sits outside his house.
Right.
Day in, day out.
Just waiting for a stranger to ask, like, to go get him his groceries. That's essentially what happens.
Like my 3 chickens, I've been sat here for years. I've lost these 3 chickens, and I've just been waiting for someone like you to come along. And if you bring me 1 or 2 chickens, then I will kind of always just ask you about those 3 chickens. And once they're done, I will finally go back in my house, once you've found them.
Well, it almost seems counterintuitive to me that, a world of randomly generated things, procedurally generated things, would feel more alive. I would think it would be different. I would think, it would be all about, like, the hands of an artist making something, molding it themselves, and that would give, like, the illusion of life. But No Man's Sky is all about the opposite. It's about putting you in a place where everything is random. How do you make sure that it feels living in a way that typical NPC doesn't?
Well, actually, we put a lot of time into, say, creatures and things. Actually, my ideal sci-fi world is Tatooine, right? Where you've just got a couple of kind of scattered buildings. You've got beautiful kind of desolate desert planets. you know.
Bars that don't allow
that
robots in.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But that's my perfect kind of frontier world, right? Like, it kind of epitomizes it for me. Um, but then, like, if you take our creatures or something like that, you were saying, how do you make it feel alive? How do you make it feel like a real place? Like, we actually put a lot of time into that because actually, most creatures that you come across in games, they are like placed down by an artist or a designer, like in a very specific place where they can work, where the designer knows that they make sense, a little bit like NPCs. For us, we have these creatures who exist on planets, and you can just kind of you can hang about and just watch what they get up to, And so we needed to make them feel more real and a little bit more intelligent. I'm not saying that they're going to start like doing maths equations for you or anything like that, but they go down to the water to drink. They come up to higher ground to eat, and that's not because somebody has placed waypoints for them or something like that. They just figure those things out for themselves. If there's a group of them, then they'll feel maybe a bit more safe and secure, and maybe one of them will attack you if you're a bit more threatening, or if they're on their own, they're more likely to run away. And so, like, you have species of creatures. People always ask that, like, is there a species that just attacks you, And there are species that are aggressive, but that doesn't mean that they just attack you, because that would be stupid. It depends what you're doing. If you've been firing your gun a lot, then they're going to be a lot more hesitant to do that. But if it's the first time that they've seen you and you come walking right up to them and butting into them, and there's a group of them, then they're going to probably attack you. So we want it to feel a little bit more real, and that the player just has to think a little bit. And hopefully that helps them to get drawn in and feel like this is kind of a little bit more of a real place than I might have been expecting, because that's really important to the game.
Now, Sean, I know you guys need to go. I know that your E3 isn't done yet. One last little quick question. It's a very simple one from Kurodo. Will there be a physical release of No Man's Sky? Like, would there ever be a disc for this? It seems like this requires a connection to the internet to actually work.
So that's a really good question, right? I really like that question. So two things. One is you don't need an internet connection for this to work. You can drop offline. We will generally try and avoid always online if we can at all, right? And that's very purposeful, and it's extra work for us. But the way the game works is that if you play online, then you will see, the kind of interactions of other players, and you'll also see like the names that people give to planets and the names that people give to creatures and solar systems and stuff like that. If you play offline, then you won't see that, And actually, the way the game works is we have this thing called the Atlas computer that everyone is connecting to, and that's kind of our own network effectively, like in the game, this kind of central intelligence that everyone connects to, and that's where explorers are uploading their discoveries to. So if you find something, you kind of go to a beacon, and then you upload the discoveries, and like in game, it's kind of like you're connecting to the Atlas, right? In reality, you're connecting to the internet, right? But it is a real kind of network, right? So if you're exploring and you're offline, then you're just not connected to that network, and that network has all the information about planets and things that people have found, right? And so you can make loads of discoveries and then finally go to a beacon and then upload them. And at that point, it will check if those discoveries really are valid, if they're completely new, and if they are, then you'll get a reward for that. So it's a real working system. As regarding physical release, I think that would be a cool thing. It's a thing that has come up a lot, because we've been at E3, and E3 is all about retail kind of thing.
Right,
You know, actually, E3 was created for
It's for
like
it's for
Best
trade.
Buy,
It's a
Target.
trade show. It's
Yeah, and what people don't realize is those guys sit. You know, that's what the conferences are. That's why Sony and Microsoft. That's why they pay so much money to host those conferences. Is actually not really about press.
right.
It's more about like analysts and retailers and stuff. So actually, we're this real anomaly. Where last year, like a lot of people said, we won E3 and stuff like that, and then like there were all these retailers who were like, where is this No Man's Sky? Like we can't sell it, you know. And I like that. I like that that kind of is upsetting for people. But I also like the idea that, you know, we could potentially release it in, you know, in a box, right? And that would be a cool thing for an indie game. I think that would like kind of, uh, you know, break some barriers of some sort that might be useful for other indies, you know, later on. So I think that's the thing that, you know, maybe we will do. You know, not because we we don't think digital games are the future or anything like that, but just because it would be a cool thing for the like almost the established gaming industry. You know.
Hell yeah. I would buy the hell out of that. Yeah, if you told me there was a limited edition tomorrow and I could get a tiny little spaceship with it, I would buy the bejesus out of that in a heartbeat.
I might hold you to that.
Hey, I will be there day one, man. This is a pick it up at midnight type of game for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out to hang out with us. Sean, thank you so much for taking some time here at the end of your very busy E3 week to talk about No Man's Sky with us. This was absolutely spectacular, and we'll all keep an eye out for it. You know, in the next year, maybe 6 months release date. No, I kid. Is there anything else?
Release date really soon.
Is there any?
Hope people will be happy.
Anything else you want to say to folks before you guys sign off?
Yeah, just what I was just starting to kind of bubble there, which is we'll be announcing a release date soon, and like hopefully people will be happy. It's been super frustrating to do E3 without doing that. That was the main thing we wanted to do at E3, but we can't for a variety of reasons, like good reasons. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to tell people soon, and people seem excited about that. So I definitely can't complain.
Wonderful. Well, Sean, you guys will have to come back on the show when No Man's Sky is out there in the wild, then we can finally play it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Get home safe, all right, guys?
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us for our No Man's Sky stream today. You heard it from Hello Games right here on the air. There is going to be an offline mode for No Man's Sky. We're going to have that release date very, very soon, and that is pretty goddamn awesome. If you guys have enjoyed this stream, I encourage you to click that little follow button right there at the bottom. We do this all the frickin' time. Engadget.com/gaming. This is twitch.tv/joystick. You guys can always catch us. We have a ridiculous amount of other E3 coverage right here on the channel. If you go to twitch.tv/joystick/profile, you will find all of our E3 interviews that we did right here. Do you want to know about Yooka-Laylee, the new platformer by the dudes from Rare who made Banjo-Kazooie? We talked to them. We talked to Mike Bithell, the creator of Volume, and we played Volume live here on the show. Check that stuff out. And we'll be back later today. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time. We're going to be doing a little E3 wrap-up, just a casual talk. We're going to hang out. We're going to play some games. Be back here this afternoon because it would be really cool to see you guys. My name is John Agnello. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @AJohnAgnello. I'm going to pop that into the chat. Bam. Twitter.com/AJohnAgnello. That is me. Everybody, thanks so much. We will see you later today. Bye-bye.